Gilbert discussing Browning. He has been called a thinker, and was certainly a man who was always thinking, and always thinking aloud. But it was not thought that fascinated him, but rather the process by which thought moves. It was the machine he loved, not what the machine makes. The method by which the fool arrives at his folly was as dear to him as the ultimate wisdom of the wise. So much indeed did the subtle mechanism of mind fascinate him, that he despised language, or looked upon it as an incomplete instrument of expression. Rhyme, that exquisite echo which in the muse's hollow hill creates and answers its own voice. Rhyme, which in the hands of the real artist becomes not merely a material element of metrical beauty, but a spiritual element of thought and passion also, waking a new mood, it may be, or stirring a fresh train of ideas, or opening by mere sweetness and suggestion of sound some golden door at which the imagination itself had knocked in vain. Rhyme, which can turn man's utterance to the speech of gods. Rhyme, the one chord we have added to the Greek lyre, became in Robert Browning's hands a grotesque, misshapen thing, which at times made him masquerade in poetry as a low comedian, and ride Pegasus, too often with his tongue in his cheek. There are moments when he wounds us by monstrous music. Nay, if he can only get his music by breaking the strings of his lute, he breaks them, and they snap in discord, and no Athenian tetics making melody from tremulous wings lights on the ivory horn to make the movement perfect, or the interval less harsh. Yet he was great, and though he turned language into ignoble clay, he made from it men and women that live. He is the most Shakespearean creature since Shakespeare. If Shakespeare could sing with myriad lips, Browning could stammer through 1,000 mouths. Even now as I am speaking, and speaking not against him but for him, there glides through the room the pageant of his persons. There creeps Fra Lippo-Lippi with his cheeks still burning from some girl's hot kiss. There stands dread Saul, with the lordly male sapphires gleaming in his turban. Mildred Tresham is there, and the Spanish monk, yellow with hatred, and Blugram and Ben Ezra, and the Bishop of St. Praxed's. The spawn of Satibo's gibbers in the corner, and Sebald, hearing Pippa pass by, looks on Autumna's haggard face, and loathes her, and his own sin, and himself. Pale as the white satin of his doublet, the melancholy king watches, with dreamy, treacherous eyes, two loyal Strafford pass forth to his doom, and Andrea shudders as he hears the cousin's whistle in the garden, and bids his perfect wife go down. Yes, Browning was great, and as what will he be remembered, as a poet? Not as a poet. He will be remembered as a writer of fiction, as the most supreme writer of fiction, it may be, that we have ever had. His sense of dramatic situation was unrivaled, and if he could not answer his own problems, he could at least put problems forth. And what more should an artist do? Considered from the point of view of a creator of character, he ranks next to him who made Hamlet. Had he been articulate, he might have sat beside him. The only man who can touch the hem of his garment is George Meredith. Meredith is a prose Browning, and so is Browning. He used poetry as a medium for writing in prose. There is something in what you say, but there is not everything in what you say. In many points you are unjust. It is difficult not to be unjust to what one loves. But let us return to the particular point at issue. What was it that you said? Simply this, that in the best days of art, there were no art critics. I seem to have heard that observation before, Ernest. It is all the vitality of error, and all the tediousness of an old friend. It is true. Yet, there is no use in your tossing your head in that petulant matter. It is quite true. In the best days of art, There were no art critics. The sculptor hewed from the marble block the great white-limbed Hermes that slept within it. The waxers and gilders of images gave tone and texture to the statue, and the world, when he saw it, worshipped and was dumb. He poured the glowing bronze into the mold of sand, and the river of red metal cooled into noble curves, and took the impress of the body of a god. With enamel or polished jewels, he gave sight to the sightless eyes. The hyacinth-like curls grew crisp beneath his graver, and when, in some dim frescoed fane or pillared sunlit portico, the child of Leto stood upon his pedestal, those who passed by, treading delicately through the most brilliant air, became conscious of a new influence that had come across at their lives, and dreamily, or with a sense of strange and quickening joy, went to their homes or daily labor, or wandered, it may be, through the city gates to that nymph-haunted meadow where young Phaedrus bathed his feet, lying there on the soft grass, beneath the tall wind-whispering planes and flowering Agnus Castus, began to think of the wonder of beauty, and grew silent with unaccustomed awe. In those days the artist was free. From the river valley he took the fine clay in his fingers, and with a little tool of wood or bone fashioned it into forms so exquisite that the people gave them to the dead as their playthings, and we find them still in the dusty tombs on the yellow hillside by Tanagra, with the faint gold and the fading crimson still lingering about hair and lips when raiment. On a wall of flesh plaster, stained with bright sandex or mixed with milk and saffron, he pictured one who trod with tired feet the purple-white starred fields of asphodel, one in whose eyelids lay the whole of the Trojan war, Polyxena, the daughter of Priam, or figured Odysseus, the wise and cunning, bound by tight cords to the mast step, that he might listen without hurt to the singing of the sirens, or wandering by the clear river of Acheron, where the ghosts of fishes flitted over the pebbly bed, or showed the Persian in shoes and mitre, flying before the Greek at Marathon, or the galleys clashing their beaks of brass in the little Salaminian bay. He drew with silver point and charcoal, upon parchment and prepared cedar, upon ivory and rose-colored terracotta he painted with wax, making the wax fluid with juice of olives, and with heated irons making it firm. Panel and marble and linen canvas became wonderful as his brush swept across them, and life, seeing her old image, was still and dared not speak. All life indeed was his, from the merchants seated in the marketplace, to the cloaked shepherd lying on the hill, from the nymph hidden in the laurels, and the fawn that pipes at noon, to the king whom in long green curtained litter slaves bore upon oil-bright shoulders, and fanned with peacock fans. Men and women, with pleasure or sorrow in their faces, passed before him. He watched them, and in their secret became his. Through form and color he recreated a world. All subtle arts belonged to him also. He held the gem against the revolving disk, and the amethyst became the purple couch for Adonis. And across the veined sardonyx fed Artemis with her hounds. He beat out the gold into roses, and strung them together for a necklace or armlet. He beat out the gold into wreaths for the conqueror's helmet, or into palmates for the Tyrian robe, or into masks for the royal dead. On the back of the silver mirror he graved a Thetis born by her Nereid or lovesick Phaedra, with her nurse or Persephone wary of memory, putting poppies in her hair. The potter sat in his shed, and flower-like from the silent wheel the vase rose up beneath his shed, and flower-like from the silent wheel the vase rose up beneath his hands. He decorated the basin stem and ears with pattern of dainty olive leaf, or foliated acanthus, or curved and crested wave. Then in black or red he painted lads wrestling, or in the race knights in full armour, with strange heraldic shields and curious visors leading from shell-shaped chariots over rearing steeds. The gods seated at the feast shore working their miracles, the heroes in their victory or in their pain. Sometimes he would etch in thin vermilion lines upon a ground of white the languid bridegroom and his bride, with Eros hovering round them. And Eros, like one of the Donatello's angels, a little laughing thing with gilded or with azure wings. On the curved side he would write the name of his friend, noble Alcibiades, noble Charmides, tells us the story of his days. Again on the rim of the wide flat cup he would draw the stag browsing, or the lion at rest as his fancy willed it. From the tiny perfume bottle laughed Aphrodite at her toilet, and with bare-limbed Maenads in his train, Dionysus danced round the wine jar on naked musk-stained feet, while satyr-like the old Silenus sprawled upon the bloated skins, or shook that magic spear, which was tipped with a fretted fir cone and wreathed with dark ivory. And no one came to trouble the artist at his work. No irresponsible chatter disturbed him. He was not worried by opinions. By the Ulysses, says Arnold somewhere. There was no Higginbotham. By the Ulysses, my dear Gilbert, there were no silly art congresses bringing provincialism to the provinces and teaching the mediocrity how to mouth. By the Ulysses, there were no tedious magazines about art, in which the industrious prattle of what they do not understand. On the reed-grown banks of that little stream strutted no ridiculous journalism, monopolizing the seat of judgment when it should be apologizing on the dock. The Greeks had no art critics.